guys, welcome to Podcast Fandom Premium. I'm your host, Nina.
I'm Donald.
And we are back to kick off a brand new show. We're going to be talking about Foundation. It is a new original series on Apple TV Plus. Or is it Apple Plus TV? I don't know. What is
just Apple Plus?
Apple Plus? Maybe Apple Plus. I have no idea. I
don't know.
I have no idea. I'm honestly so confused by this streaming service. I just know we have it. We had it for free for a long time because of like our cell phones or something like that. I think we only just started paying for it. And I want to say it's like $4.99 a month. Like it's not expensive. But yeah, they have original series, including Ted Lasso, which is a show that we are going to be covering. We are going to be doing a season 2 discussion on Ted Lasso, and I would say that it's going to be a lot of general talk about the second season as a whole, but there will be probably, I'm thinking a lot of the specific conversations that we have about the second season, like actual, we'll probably talk more about the most recent episodes is what I'm trying to say. So, which I still haven't seen. I still need to watch probably the last 3 or 4 episodes of the season. Donnie, you're done, right?
Yep.
Okay. So when we talk about it, just again, realize that of course we're going to refer to season 1 stuff and stuff that happened earlier in season 2. But the bulk of the discussion will probably be like back half season 2, majority season 2 discussion. So I say all that to say that Apple TV Plus or Apple Plus, whatever, has some pretty good shows. This is the 3rd show that I've watched. I watched the first season of Servant. I watched, like I said, Ted Lasso, and now this. Hi, Nico. When Foundation dropped, they dropped the first 2 episodes, right? And then they dropped while I was on vacation. And now it's been 1 episode a week. So with this podcast, we're going to be talking about the first 3 episodes. And then we'll be doing 1 episode a week after that.
But wait, there was 4 episodes.
Right.
Oh, okay. I thought you just said we're going to do this podcast of the 3.
Yeah, we are. And then the next podcast will be for episode 4.
Oh, okay. Gotcha.
Okay. So...
I watched it. I watched 4.
I know. It's separate podcasts. So basically, when this podcast drops, like the premium and the time travel folks will have access to it, and it's actually going to go up on our free channel because we always put up the first podcast for a show for free. But when this goes up for episodes 1, 2, and 3, time travel folks will have episode 4 a week early. So, but for this show right now, we're going to be talking about the first 3 episodes. Donnie, what were your overall thoughts? Well, maybe first I should just give like a general of like what the show is about. Okay. So it is based off I believe, series of books by Isaac Asimov. I think that's how you say his name. And, it is about a galaxy far, far away. There's how to explain it? The Empire, which consists of 3 clones of Cleon the First. He was the, I guess, original emperor ruler, and before he died, he started a process of cloning himself. So there are always 3 versions of him ruling at any given time, and they live on the surface of the planet Trantor. In opulence, obviously. And there is a huge star bridge, like a big hub travel station above it. And people live on those levels, right? And I think they said, like, when the one girl in the first episode traveled to Trantor and your spacecraft reaches the star bridge, then you have to like travel down like to the surface of the planet, right? And I think they said it takes like 14 hours to travel just down to the surface of the planet. And so
that's one of the questions I have. So the emperor himself, like they live up at the very top level.
No. They live on the surface of the planet.
Oh, okay.
Right. And that star bridge and all that stuff is above them. So it's basically like a big elevator, except the levels, like people can actually live on the levels, like, and they're like, they have different purposes, I guess. And then all the planets that they control and, whatever they're known for, like whatever resources they mine, they give a percentage of that to the Empire as like payment. You know what I mean? And so the show is about what happens when the Empire basically gets news that they don't want to hear, which is that the Empire's in trouble, that it's going to fall soon. And by soon, I think he said like within the next 5 centuries, but that it will be like this long period of darkness and devastation before they even come out of it, if they were to come out of it. And so it's about like the aftermath of this news and what the Empire decides to do about it. So, Donnie, what did you think of these 3 episodes? You didn't like them. I mean, he didn't like them. He didn't like them, guys. I know he didn't like them.
I like the overall theme, but I'm confused on a lot of stuff. This show has a lot of characters and plays with time. And that confuses the fuck out of me. So
I think
more like I'm gonna need your help just kind of understanding this guy is in this time, like right. I'm guessing the newer episodes are just this is I think it's 15 years.
This is one of those things where the story is being narrated by Gaal, a character who we spent a lot of time with in the first 2 episodes and then not so much. And they're clearly narrating this from a point in the future, right? And so from where we are currently, like the state of the world currently, I have no idea, but I know that there is what we could consider like present time, and then there are flashbacks. So I will try my best to help you make sense of it. I really like it, and I'm surprised. Like, I saw the trailer for it, and I'm not like, as much as I like sci-fi stuff, I don't like a lot of space stuff, if that makes sense. Like, I like science fiction about like artificial intelligence and time travel, but I'm not really. It takes some, like, the story has to be really, really good for me to like care about going into outer space. And a lot of it is, there's just like a lot of like hard science mixed with, pseudoscience, I guess it's called. And it's a lot to like keep up with. But this is a lot to keep up with, but I don't know. It's just something about it that grabbed me, and I really like it. And I knew that it was a good sign for me in the show when I rewatched the first 2 episodes to take notes, and I was just as invested as I was when I watched them just purely for pleasure, like a week and a half ago or 2 weeks ago. So yeah, I'm digging it. It is a lot though, and I think I understand some stuff, but I do have questions. And now here's the thing. There is a feedback post up on Patreon. It's open to the public, whether or not you're a paid subscriber or not. You can access all of our feedback posts. When I ask questions, I'm gonna need y'all to answer them. This can't be one of those times where you guys are not leaving feedback. Like, there's some stuff that I'm confused on myself. And if you guys know better, please help me out. But for the most part, I think I got it. Are you ready to dive into these episodes?
Yep.
Okay. So the first one was called The Emperor's Peace. Synopsis: a young mathematician leaves her home planet to work with a renowned mathematician who finds himself on the bad side of the Empire. So the first episode begins with, I guess what you could say would be, let's just say now, okay? Like present day. And on the planet of Terminus, there is the Foundation. And later we're going to find out what the Foundation is. But for right now, there is this figure, this I don't know what you want to call, like it's like a floating statue almost. It's like shaped kind of like 2 triangular shapes kind of pressed together. And it is emitting what they call a null field. And it basically makes it impossible for any living being to get too close to this thing, right? And there are these kids that apparently the people who live around this thing or in this area on this planet have been like kids challenge each other, right? To go plant a flag, like to get as close as you can and plant a flag there. And there's also some rumor about like a ghost that lives near it. So that's how we get an introduction to this thing called the vault, that nobody knows where it came from, but just that it emits this energy that makes people sick and pass out to keep them from getting any closer. And the warden of whatever this area is at the time, we don't know, is named Salvor Hardin. It's a black woman. I was like, yes. She's telling little kids, take y'all asses home, okay? Stop playing out here. Now, it's interesting because at this point, the voiceover is very much letting you know, okay, like this is now, but before we explain like what all this shit is, we got to go back in the past to tell us how we got here. And she goes back 35 years. And I like this because her narration says, when talking about this character that she just introduced to us, Salvor Harding, she says that there are other names that would come to be well known in regards to like all the shit that's about to go down. And I don't think we've met any of these people yet. She said Hober Mallow and the Mole. But then she talks about when we go back 35 years before, we're on Trantor, which is the planet that the Empire lives on, like the rulers live on. And she says, when she I can't remember how she phrases it, but she says something like the people responsible or whatever. She says a mathematician, a murderer, a martyr, and of course, Harry Seldon. So she's the mathematician, right? And I'm guessing Raish is the murderer, but I don't know who the martyr is yet. But anyway, okay. So are you following me now? You got it so far? Donnie, you still with me?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay, we really haven't gone anywhere. You just this thing called the vault is putting out an energy on this planet and nobody can get close to it, right? Now we jump back 35 years. We're on a planet called Synax, okay? And on this planet, apparently it is illegal to, I know math is illegal, like you can't study math, and I want to say science too. But definitely math. And that's why she's in trouble. Because they look at being into science and stuff as anti their religion. Okay? And so she, I guess, got caught studying math. And I think what got her caught is that Harry Seldon, this really famous mathematician professor on Trantor, held a contest with an equation. Like, can you solve this? And she's the only person in the galaxy who solved it. So I guess that came at a cost. Like, how you know how to do this? You're not supposed to do this. So she's leaving. Her prize is to go work with him for solving this equation. So she ends up having to leave her home planet to go work with Harry Stanton. What is wrong with my dog?
I don't know. I just called Kaylee down.
Thank you. So, okay. So you got it now? You get why she left home?
Yeah,
okay.
This was like seeing like this. It immediately made me think that she was younger than she actually was. Like
okay.
I associated it with like high school, like a
right,
some kind of competition to go with this guy.
Right.
And so all the way up until the point where like she's in the swimming pool with
Grace.
And they start, I'm like, wait, what's going on?
Yeah, no, she's an adult, I think, like a young adult. Yes, yeah. Yes. Okay, so now when she goes to this planet, like this was really cool because like the ship picked her up like in the middle of the ocean. Like this is like really cool scene where she goes to the ship that's going to take her to Trantor. Like the travel process in this was really cool. She gets on this ship and they give you this, like put you in this stuff to make you fall asleep. So I guess so you can do the jump, you know, like the light speed travel or whatever. But she wakes up during it, which, you know, I guess you're not supposed to do. So this is like another sign. There's all these signs that she's special, right? Her name is Gaal. Hopefully I said that. And she's talking to this guy on the trip who's kind of, you know, telling her about stuff and what to expect and all of that. And I was like suspicious because he's a white dude. And I was like, I was like, sis, hold on a second, you guys. I got to charge my iPad. it's what I'm using to take my notes. I was like, sis, you can't be just talking to strange white men on the train like this. But
and he was, right? Because he was.
Yeah, because he ends up working for the Empire. Yes. Right. Okay, so she's telling him how she won this contest. Sorry, guys, like I said, I got to charge this. She won this contest, and this is why she's going to Trantor. And we get their conversation as they travel. Gives us a lot of information. One thing we learn, hold on a second, let me move my mic a little bit closer. Okay. So one thing we learn is that there are these two planets, Anacreon and Thespis, and they don't get along. They've not gotten along for like centuries, apparently. And something happened between them. I could not get the full details. And I was too lazy to go back to listen to the conversation again. But it sounded like there was like some sort of transport, something was going on, there was somebody fired on somebody between these two planets. But people who got hurt were actual people from, I think they call it like the Imperial ship or whatever, like people from Trantor, people under the Empire. And so they were, at the same time that she's arriving on Trantor, so have two delegates from those two planets with their kind of like entourage, right? To go before the Empire and plead their case. Like, you know, like basically like Judge Judy. Like two neighbors going on Judge Judy to complain this small claims shit that they have going. So this is going on at the same time she arrives on Trantor. And this is when they explain to us the Empire and what it is. So Cleon the First, 400 years ago, ruled everything. Before he died, he implemented this process to ensure that his rule would remain, you know, forever. Basically. And so he cloned himself. And what they do is they decant him at 3 different ages in his life. And those are the 3 that sit on the throne. And it basically, we see later cycles from the eldest, right? The oldest brother, when he dies, and his name is Dusk, Brother Dusk, right? When he's about to die, they call it approaching the darkness, right? When he's about to die, Day, the middle one in charge, who looks like, when the show starts, he looks like Lee Pace, right? The actor Lee Pace, because it is Lee Pace.
It looks like Lee Pace.
You know what I mean? Lee Pace, who is Day, he becomes Dusk, right? Dawn, who is the youngest, becomes Day, sits in the middle, and then they take a baby from the clone machine or whatever the fuck they're doing. And that baby is now Brother Dawn, okay? And so because they can, like, you know, the Dusk, before he heads into darkness, like we get to see them at different ages, not just the 3 that were introduced. So when the series starts, there's a little boy who is Dawn, and he's like, I don't know, 10 maybe. And then middle-aged Day, Lee Pace, and then Dusk, who's a bit older. You know who this actor looks like? He kind of reminds me of Jeffrey Dean Morgan with like a really fluffy beard. Really look at him again. Can you pull?
My first thought was like Tommy Chong, but
what? He's not even Asian. What are you talking about?
No, it's just because of the beard stuff. That's what.
Okay. Hold on. I'm gonna pull up their names because, Terrence Mann. He looks so different, though. He looks so different in his role. Okay, so that's how they rule. So it's basically the same person, but it's clones of the same person at 3 different stages in his life, and that they call it the genetic dynasty. Okay, so
I wonder what happens, like if, well, I guess it's never happened, but I was gonna say if one of them, like the older one or somebody got assassinated, but
well, that's the thing. Like I was thinking that too, because what I started to say before is because you can't tell, like, well, in a normal situation, you wouldn't be able to predict when any of them are going to die, right? Like somebody could get sick, but because they're genetically produced, I'm assuming they can't get sick. And that they just have like a shelf life. Right. So like the Dusk always gets to be old and then it just depends on, however, whatever that cycle is. And then we learn later that they have what he called the aura, and it's basically like a vibranium suit.
Invisible.
Yeah, that over them that rejects kinetic energy or whatever. So I'm assuming, like you said, it's just never happened. They've never been
I do like the
challenged.
Because I think we see a little bit of it here that they're like all three of them aren't like exactly the same. Like they'll learn different things or say different things, or they won't be like, hey, that's why doesn't the younger one do what the middle, like, I don't.
Yeah, I know
like
what you're saying, because when we no, I know what you're saying, because when we, and we'll talk about it more, when we first meet them, like the one in the middle seems just evil, right? Day.
Right.
And then the elder one, it's like the way he was talking was like he didn't necessarily agree with the things that Day was going to do, but it felt like he just pretty much accepted it. Like, that's just the way it's going to be. Like, remember, for instance, we'll talk about it. But I get what you're saying. And this is really important, I think, to what happens in episodes 3 and 4. So we'll get there. All right. So our first, like, kind of real introduction today is him killing the man. Did you peep that this man his entire life, all he has done is work for them cleaning that mural? He starts in one end and then goes to, like, there's like a giant room with that, the murals on the wall. And he cleans it. Yeah. And he was like, how long have you been working for us? And he was like, 60 years or some shit. I've cleaned this entire thing 5 times in his lifetime. He starts at one corner and doesn't stop till he's like, I know every blah, blah, blah. But Brother Day has him murdered right there on the spot. Just disintegrated, because they found a book written by a man named Harry Seldon in his room. Okay, and this is important later. Harry Seldon is the mathematician that I mentioned earlier. And then we have Demoiselle, who looks like Gwyneth Paltrow to the point where the first few times they showed this woman, I thought it was Gwyneth Paltrow. I did. The first 2 times I was like, wow, I didn't know she was in this. And then she started talking. I was like, oh, that's not Gwyneth Paltrow. And now, like, the more I watch the episodes, it's like, how could I ever think this was Gwyneth Paltrow? But the first time we see her, she looks like Gwyneth Paltrow to me.
So she is
not human.
Like, she's an android or something like it, right?
Yeah. So, but like, she comes from like a race, like, of people. It's not like,
right. And that's why when I think she mentions it or something like that, how they were all just. They were like ended or whatever. So there was like a
terminated.
Right.
They were exterminated by the Empire.
Right. Yes. So I feel like there was a time where there was a ton of it, just androids walking around.
I feel like they're wherever her people are like from or whatever they are. I feel like what happened to them was like back 400 years ago, like. When Cleon the First, because remember, like, when we get that flashback and he says to her, like, the Empire hasn't always been good to your kind or something like that. It felt like it was more recent than when they were discussing it later. Like, yeah, my people been gone for centuries, but we don't have all the information on that yet. So Gaal meets Raish, who is, when we first meet Raish, he's played by, oh my God, what's his name? I almost said Alfie Allen. That is not Alfred Enoch. You know who Alfie Allen is?
Yes.
Who is Alfie?
Game of Thrones.
Yes. Reek. Theon. Sorry, Alfred Enoch. When we first meet him, it's, he's being tasked, like he's going to go pick Gaal up from the station or whatever. And he's with Harry Seldon, who's played by Jared Harris, by the way. And it's clear, like, something big is gonna, okay, this is more than him just picking this girl up to start a job or whatever, because, like, they press their foreheads together and it's like, what's about to go down? And he calls him son. So I was like, I thought it was his biological son, but we find out later it's not. He picks her up from the airport. He picks her up from the Starbridge.
The sky elevator.
Right. And this is where we learn, when we first meet her, she's counting a number starting in like the millions. But what it is that when she's nervous, she counts prime numbers. And so she's nervous here. All right. I wrote this down because I was determined to try to understand it. And I did my Googles and I still don't get it. All right. So basically, Abraxas conjecture is a mathematical proof. I'm looked up what a mathematical proof is, and I read the definition a bazillion fucking times, and I don't understand it. Later in the podcast, I will look it up again and read it to you if you're interested. And if you think you can explain it to me like I'm two, I would appreciate it. But she solved it using Callie's ninth proof, which is something that some people, like, she's the only person ever to, like, think to use that to do this thing, and that makes her fucking special. That's the best I got for you, okay? And what you need to know about Harry Seldon here is that he is an expert in psychohistory. And psychohistory is the belief, the theory, the practice of determining or being able to predict and lay out the path, the destiny of the human race in numbers. Okay? So
it was like, it just reminded me a lot of who's the one that everybody says, basically the one that predicted the future.
Nostradamus.
Yes, Nostradamus. That's what.
But with him, and I don't know a lot about Nostradamus, so I shouldn't say but. In this instance with Harry, I get what you're saying. His thing is based off of numbers, right? Like, and as we see later, that challenges, like the rule and the kind of, what's the word I'm looking for? Just the kind of like overall faith people have in the empire is challenged by this. And later we see even considering practicing a different religion that's not approved by the empire or whatever. But yeah, so he is an expert in psychohistory, and his work has told him that the empire is going to fall. And he gets right to the point. He's like, we're both going to be arrested tomorrow. And it boils down to the fact that he needed to find someone that could understand his work, that could corroborate his work, right? That the empire would try to find somebody to prove him wrong. And that's why she's there, basically, right? So meanwhile, remember I said that the two warring planets had reps that were brought before the empire. Right. So did you get that they brought the empire gifts? And then like one from Anacreon brought, I think it was like a bow and arrows.
Yes.
And then the other one brought like a sheet, like the lyrics to a song or something like that. But then
and this is where the young one was like, he was like the fucking genius out of all of them.
Well, yes, Day, he brings those to the room, and they use this to teach Dawn. Basically, these are bribes, right? So whatever Anacreon mines on their planet, I don't remember what it was, whatever kind of resource that they gave as tribute to the empire, let's say every month, like paying their rent, like let's say it was 10%, he figured out that something on it said they're telling us they will raise it to 15% if we rule in their favor. And you get what I mean? So that's what those gifts were.
Right, I get that.
Okay. So
I just like that when they asked, like, Dawn's the young one, right? And he's like, well, he breaks it down to why, like, they don't even have all their bow and arrow made out of wood, so they don't even have any kind of materials, stuff like how he comes to see all that.
So we learned that when they are arrested and questioned, Nico, they're arrested and questioned, and we learned that Harry predicts that the empire is going to fall within 500 years, and there's going to be like a darkness that lasts like 30,000 years. And they said, or it could be like as low as 1,000 years, right? So This is what he testifies before, like the first day. After he testifies that, and then they say, okay, we'll bring this Gaal person before us to, to look at your work and say if it's right or not. Before they do that, though, that's when Gaal finds out that guy, Gerald, that was talking to her on the ship, that he works for the Empire. And he presents her with Harry's work, the full thing, and tells her to look it over. And he basically breaks it down. He was like, if his work is right, you still should say that it's wrong so you can go home. And the Empire will make sure that you're taken care of. But if you corroborate, you're going to die with him. Right? So I like when he tells her, though, you need to figure out who you are before somebody else does and uses it against you. Because I really do feel like that's what was she was just so manipulated in those first 2 episodes. She clearly, like, Harry and Raish were clearly doing something else, if that makes sense. Like, she didn't have the full picture. Now, I have a question. After she testifies and she tells the truth. She's like, nope, he's right. Y'all are fucked. So, like, okay, sentence them to death. When they're walking out, that's when the Starbridge is attacked. How does she know? Because she looked up and she said, Harry, there's something wrong with the Starbridge. But at that time, the only thing that had happened was they showed those 2 terrorists just walking around.
I didn't notice that.
Yeah, she was like, there's something wrong with the Starbridge. And then everybody looks up, or she and Harry stop and look up. And then they cut to the guy sitting there singing and setting off the explosion. Then the other guy is like in the station and sets off his explosion. And I was like, how does she know that was going to happen? I don't know. But
so when she was talking to Raish about, like, she's like, and I don't know if it was before this or after this, and she's talking to Raish about that. Yes, she knows that what his theory is that it's correct. Like, he is, but she was like saying there's missing pieces.
Yeah, so like, that's in the next episode, and that pissed me off. Go ahead.
She's like, there's missing pieces, and we don't really, and this is my thought. This is what I got out of it. It's that they actually don't know when the end of the people would be. Human civilization.
Right.
Because he is like, oh, it's going to be here and here. She's like, well, really, yes, it's going to happen. We just don't know when.
Right. And I think that if you notice, there's a couple of times, particularly I think it's how it ends. I think the 4th episode begins and ends with this thing that he mentions in the 1st episode, which is Harry's work can predict and tell you, like, the rise and fall of an empire, or the beginning and end of a culture, but it can't predict singular decisions, right? Like a single person. And I think that's interesting, particularly when you mentioned how she said, I looked at his work and it's like a puzzle where, like, and basically what she's saying is you can have a giant 1,000-piece puzzle almost completed on your table, right? Mm-hmm. And it's missing a few pieces. But you can look at it and say, oh, this puzzle, even though it's missing a few pieces, I can clearly tell this is a bowl of red apples, right? But what you may not know is that, the pieces that are missing, when you plug them in, let's say they're eyeballs. You know what I mean? And it's like, oh, wait, these aren't apples at all. These are actually little heads. You know what I mean? Like, that's her point, is that for a safe bet with just a few pieces missing, you can assume what the picture is going to be, but you'd be totally fucked if when you find those pieces, your assumption is wrong, right? It's like, oh, wow, these little things make a big difference. And I think those are the people, like Salvor and her. Do you get what I mean? Like,
gotcha.
The things that he couldn't have accounted for. Or maybe he did, which is one of the things that she says in the voiceover. So, all right. So this I thought was interesting. When they're going to take her for sentencing, right? After the terrorist attack, Raish goes in her room first, like the cell that she's in, And he tries to get her to say that she was wrong. So they send her home. Right? And she is like, have you lost faith? Like he was like, Harry, you don't have to die with Harry. Right? And then she's like, what are you talking about? And then the guards came in to get her and they put that shroud on her. And he was like, hey, she doesn't need that. Why was he allowed in there? Why was he talking like he was with them?
Because he probably is.
Okay. So when she testifies, she tells when they're like, what we should do about this, right? Because Day is ready to just like scorch earth, and Dusk is like, we should like think a little bit. We should, slow down. She tells the Empire that if they kill Harry, they're actually going to accelerate the bad stuff happening, right? Because there are people that believe him, and you do this, you're going to kill Hope. You kill Hope, you might as well kill yourselves, right? So in the end, it's determined that to save face, the Empire will pretend like, okay, you may be right. So work on your little, basically like a Noah's Ark type thing. You go on this planet, you build this foundation, right, from which to rebuild society whenever this horrible things happen. That's that. But really what it is that they don't think it's going to happen. They're just trying to get rid of him. They send him to a planet with horrible conditions. And and then you get this, they didn't allow them to jump. Like they couldn't use jump technology to get there. So it took like years to get to Terminus. Did you understand that?
No, I didn't catch that.
Yes. They're on this, they call it the slow ship. What? Yeah. So now we jump 35 years in the future. We're at the foundation. So it's like, oh, this is Terminus. They made it, right? This is where that vault thing is, right? And we learned that Salvor is the only person that can walk up to that thing without getting hurt.
Right.
And she has, at least in this clip at the end of this episode, it looks like she's seen inside of it, right? Because it was like a yellow light. And the voiceover of Gaal is saying, about Harry, did he know the fate of the galaxy would rest on what she found inside? And she goes, I think he did, and I think it's what he feared the most. So I'm like, I don't know what the fuck. All right, episode 2, Preparing to Live. Gaal and Raish grow closer on the way to Terminus. Gaal questions the preservation decision process, and the Empire Strikes Back. I don't even know why they didn't call this episode The Empire Strikes Back. Why didn't they call this episode The Empire Strikes Back? Because that's exactly what happened. All right. The episode begins with a attack on a biohacking facility. So it's Demerzel and some Imperial guards. They know that this is the place that made those bombs. Because the terrorists use like these bio bombs, right? Like they just touch their wrists or whatever. So they tracked it to being made and sold there, but they just don't know like to whom and or whatever. So they kill these people. They don't get any information. Demerzel has to go back to the Empire and say, yeah, we don't know who bought this shit. We learned that we didn't talk about this. That fucking sky bridge, what was it called? Yeah, Star Bridge. When it blew up, that was terrifying.
Mm-hmm.
Did you see like when they showed the people in the like that? Remember, there's like one woman, she was like pressed against the glass as the thing was falling to Earth. And you know, when things enter the atmosphere, they like light on fire. Right. Oh my God. That was so fucking terrible. It was so, they lost millions, right? I forget, was it like 100 million people died? It was something insane. So we learned that there are still 127,000 bodies floating in the atmosphere. Let's see. Do you remember when they were doing like some sort of virtual... Okay, you did get that when they were living on a ship, right? On their way to Terminus. When she was like having sex with Raish in the pool.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. And that's where I was like, okay, it's just the three of them, so... When he dies, like, okay, Raish did that.
What are you talking about?
It's like, it was just the three of them on that ship, right?
No! a whole... Donnie, what show did you watch? Oh, my God.
Foundation.
Oh, no, you didn't. Oh.
I thought it was just the three of them.
No, Donnie, it was a whole fucking... Do you remember they were training people? And that was, like, the whole thing. Like, she was, like... They were saying that Gaal was busy learning everybody's job. And... You don't remember?
Oh, okay.
And then, like, they were doing, like, a virtual reality training, how to deal with these things called bishop claws. There's apparently some sort of animal. And we know that those animals are on Terminus because in the first episode, in the very beginning, when those kids were going out there to mess with the vault, Salver said that there was a bishop's claw sighting out there. Right. So
I thought that was...
No, they're on the ship on their way to Terminus. And while they're on the ship, they're trying to get prepared. Training people to do what needs to be done to build a new colony once they get there. Gotcha. Okay. So, and they still got 54 months left at this point. So what's that? That's more than 2 years, right? No.
That's a lot more than 2 years.
Holy shit. Wait a second.
That's like 5 years.
4. Yeah. Oh my God. Okay. Wow. So, they had mentioned something like, see, I thought you watched these episodes more recently, so I just feel bad because, like, I'm talking about stuff that you're just probably...
Now, you're explaining it to me.
Oh, they mentioned something about robot wars, like, of the past, and I was like, I want to see that.
Well, that's what I'm saying. That's what I feel like that...
Oh, you think that's what happened to Dem's people?
Right.
The robot wars. I want to see that. And then did you notice that Harry noted that they call, like, somebody was like, "Hi, Harry," and he's like, "Oh, they used to call me Dr. Selden."
It's just my friend.
And then he had her sit in on a budget meeting for him, right?
Right.
And well, we'll talk about the details of that in a second. So he asked her to go to the budget meeting. Oh, and then the Emperor the Empire, all three of them, question the reps from Anacreon and Thespin, right? About what happened. And they've had them now for like 2 weeks. And they're like, we're not involved. And I don't remember like exactly why he thinks this.
Because they're enemies.
No. But what I'm about to say next. I don't know why he thinks... They seem pretty certain, the Empire, that is, that one of those planets is involved. Possibly both. But they don't know which one. But you know what I mean? Like, it made it seem like one of you is definitely innocent. And that's when he says, someone's going to hang for it. I'd like it to be the guilty one. So it's like...
But he ended up hanging both of them, right?
Well, yeah, we'll get there. But my thing was, like, I was thinking, you know, why wouldn't you think it's both? Like, it feels like there was like a group that was clearly, either they're being framed, right? Because the evidence, like the videos, like before or the holograms or whatever, before the explosions, they were like singing, or saying a prayer from Anacreon's country or planet. And then the other one was like singing a song from Thespin, right? And they played that for the reps and they were both like, yeah, but like one of those songs, like we don't even use that song anymore. Like, you know? So I was like, either they're both being set up or maybe one of them is involved. But like, I don't think they're working together, right? Like, think about it. If one of them was involved, right? Why would you... And I mean now, what happens at the end of like in episode 3? Like going forward, how could you ever team up against the Empire if you don't trust each other? Like, first of all, you never liked each other to begin with, right? But then this thing happens and he fucks both of your planets. Like, I was thinking the Empire, like, you're running the risk of them uniting against you and maybe getting others to their cause because, like, if you do this to them. But then I really thought about it. I don't know that I would want to align with the country that possibly was responsible and let me take the fall for it with them. You get what I mean? Like, I'm still trying to figure out the sides here, you know, in the sense of like who did this, because I don't know about you, but I feel like having watched 4 episodes, I still don't know who's responsible for that Starbridge.
I don't either, but like my thought was always like, I don't know why, but I always thought like Harry had involvement.
Yeah, like I feel, yes. You know what Harry feels like? He feels like Dr. Ford on Westworld, where it's like alive or dead, you just feel like he's responsible for everything. It's like that man was behind it. So Brother Dusk is getting a little long in the tooth. He calls himself like, oh, there's one thing, I don't think I have it in my notes, and this is so fascinating to me, and I did not like really pay attention. What the fuck is going on with their like paint? Like, it's like moving sand, right?
It reminded me like an Etch-a-Sketch.
Yeah, but pretty, like in colors and stuff like that. Like I was like,
and then like later on, because I think in maybe it's episode 3 where they have the guy going through and just erasing it.
Yeah. Well, fucking kids don't know what's good for them. Ungrateful bastard. That shit takes like centuries. He's just like, yeah, I don't like it no more. Mom, I want to paint my room green. Ungrateful bastard. Anyway, so Brother Dusk is getting a little long in the tooth. He's like up on that ladder, like working on that thing, and I really thought he was gonna crack his head. I really did. But now we later learned nothing would have happened to him, right? If he'd fallen off that ladder.
Right.
Yeah. So on the slow ship, on the way to Terminus, we meet, what is her name? Oh my God, let me make sure. I can't read my own. Lowry. I don't know what the fuck this. Laurie. I'm gonna call her Lori. She's pregnant. Now, all right. There's a scene where Gaal is with the doctor. I think her name is Siobhan. The redhead. And they're checking on something, like she's getting like an ultrasound. And there's something like I could not tell if like she was having her eggs put away like for future use, or if she had already had like a fertilized egg that they were putting away. Because then when she goes out in the waiting room, he's out there like he's like a dad, you know? Like he's like, is everything okay? And I'm like, I couldn't tell. But basically what's happening is the women on the ship, they're supposed to be putting their eggs in a seed bank, because the conditions on the slow ship aren't really conducive to having children. And they obviously want to be able to repopulate and grow the Foundation, because this is where, you know, supposedly civilization has to start over again whenever this fall happens. But because the Empire made them go to Terminus, and again, it's not very hospitable, the atmosphere and the terrain and stuff, that it's not going to be very good to raise kids there either. So she doesn't want to put the baby in the seed bank, or does she not want to get an abortion? I thought she didn't want to, like, I thought they had figured out a way that she could take the embryo out and store it, and then they could re-implant it or something. But now I'm thinking maybe it was abortion. I don't know. I don't fucking know. But she ends up changing her mind, right? Because whatever it was, she ends up doing it, because later they're at dinner and she's drinking wine. And right. I thought that was to let us know that she had made a decision about that she's not currently pregnant. But it's curious though, because I don't remember seeing her in present day when we're on Terminus. I don't think we've seen her yet.
No.
So then Dusk goes to and Dusk again is the eldest of the Empire. He goes to one of the levels to visit the seer of the religion that Gaal used to belong to. And she had gone to visit him too. And what went on between them, like we've only seen it in flashes when she was having dreams, but we don't know like what he said to her and what she said to him. And Brother Dusk goes there because he just wants to know, is it true that you can see the future? And he wants to know if Selden was right. And he wants to know what this seer talked about with Gaal, but he won't tell him. And remember, this is now a bit after the explosion, a few weeks anyway, and the levels are still damaged. They're unsafe. You know, they're not stable. And as they're there, like, shit's falling, and Dem's like, we gotta go. And then she gets hit with this huge fucking block of concrete. I thought she was dead because I didn't know she was a robot before this.
Right.
Right? You don't know at this point that she's a robot. But yeah, this is where you find out. Maybe she's, what, an android?
I think she manipulates a lot of shit too.
Oh, we gonna get there.
Yeah. This
is whatever she is, she's a duplicitous white woman. No. At heart. So it's important to remember that supposedly, and I say supposedly, but I mean, I believe it. Like, Harry did not plan on being on the slow ship. He always thought that, like, he even planned he knew that they would exile them. He knew that it would be Terminus. And so they had to play like it's a disappointment, or at least he did. But this is what he knew was going to happen. What he didn't think would happen was that he would be on the ship, because remember, he thought they would kill him, right? So the fact that she spoke up, and again, I like the idea that he could predict like these overall things happening, right? Like, we're going to be put on the ship and we're going to be sent to Terminus. Like, he can predict that, but he couldn't predict that she would speak up and say, if you kill him, you accelerate the fall and get his life spared. You know what I mean? So it's almost like, to me, I don't know how you took it, but it felt like Raish and Harry planned that. Like, that wasn't murder. Do you know what I mean?
You mean Harry's murder?
Yeah. Because, okay,
I guess it could play like that. But that's what I was saying. Like, I feel like it was the only three of them in that. They were the only ones on that little slow ship, right?
No, the slow ship, I'm going to punch you in your face. The slow ship is huge. It's carrying a bunch of people. Like, they're going to basically, they're going to colonize a planet.
Gotcha, okay. No.
And they're all the people who...
I guess it was just because of the area they were in.
Yeah, they were just, it was like outside his room. Yeah.
Gotcha.
And he is like this mathematician with this, you know, his work that says this is going to happen, and people believe him. So these are all his followers. And you notice how there's a lot of themes of like belief and almost to like a religious level.
I mean, there is a lot of like religious talk and stuff like that that even like later on, and I just feel like there's a lot of God talk and stuff.
And but like it's applied to like situations like again this, where it's just math. You know what I mean? It's math, but the way because of what the math can do, I guess, you know, because the math can say, oh, what this is the death. Shut up. Because this math can predict the destiny of human race, I get that people would, you know, worship the man behind the math, you know, the process. And that's really what happens. Because I don't know if you, when they first arrive on Terminus, and they see that vault for the very first time, I think, what is his name? Abbas, the black guy, Salvor's father. He goes, what in Selden's name is that? What? Usually people say, what in God's name? Right. He said, what in Selden's name? I was like, hold on a second. And then I thought back and I was like, yeah, they say shit like that a lot. And that's why the mother got offended when Salvor she was like, don't you make it sound like a cult. And I was like, it kind of is, though. Right. Even though, I mean, the thing is, though, presumably he's right. But that doesn't make it less cultish. But anyway. Right. So here's why I think it was all a setup. All this stuff we're about to talk about, it, for me, makes it seem like this was planned. So Harry, there's all this talk about Harry saying, you know, he wasn't supposed to be on board. Him noting that people were talking to him differently. And then there's that scene where he goes down to the laundry to get his shirt. And the people ask if he's happy. And it turns out like he knows everybody's name. And he's like, none of this would be possible without you and your names. And it's like, everybody wants to shake his hand. Like, that felt very cultish. It felt very worshipy. And then the shirt that he wanted was, he made it a point. Do you remember it had like an ink stain on the cuff? He was like, I came to pick up my shirt. And the guy at the laundry was like, I'm so sorry. It's not, it's clean, but we just can't get that ink stain out on the cuff. And he was like, that's fine, whatever, he's really nice about it. He wore that shirt to dinner and he made it a point to like tug, like to show the cuffs. You know what I mean? Right. And Raish was sitting like right across from him. And then he starts telling that story about Raish as a kid. And that's where we learn, okay, this isn't his biological father. And he basically tells the story of Raish, like, he caught Raish in either his library or something, stealing something. And he was like, he was stealing it because his dad was drinking. And Raish was like, no. And he was like, yes, son. He goes, no. My dad he got hurt at work and he hurt his back. And Raish was stealing to buy the medicine for his dad. He goes, my dad didn't start drinking until after I came to live with you. I was like, oh, shit. And I felt like we've never seen them have that kind of contentiousness. Do you know what I mean? It felt fake to me.
Right.
I just thought they were like, I thought they were just like said, and he knew that it was time because he wore that shirt. That's just what it felt like. Anyway, I did not like that. Before this, like I jumped ahead a bit, but at some point in this episode, Gaal blurts out to Raish that Harry's math isn't finished. What we talked about earlier, the missing puzzle pieces. Why does she do that then? Like, it just, I don't know. That just annoyed me.
Yeah, I don't know.
And then I thought this was interesting. When she sits in on that budget meeting, they're talking about, like, again, it's like Noah's Ark, right? And they're talking about which peoples and like things are going to be preserved. Right. And she was questioning that it felt like they were prioritizing the people who lived in the inner part of the galaxy, like closer to the Empire. And, the people on the outer reach, like those two planets that were at war and where Terminus is, they call them barbarians and shit, right? Like, it doesn't seem like anybody's trying to worry about preserving those people or their cultures. And I think Gaal was kind of calling them out on that in that meeting. And I like that about her.
Right.
This is where we learned Dim is synthetic. We talked about that. Now, we learned that she says that the Empire destroyed her people. And then he goes, is that why you don't like me to see you like that? She's talking to little Dawn, who, again, is like 10 years old at this point. Is this why you don't like me to see you like that? And she goes, no, I don't like it because it's immodest. Because he was watching her change her clothes. So it's weird because it's like she's almost like a mother.
Yeah, like a nanny.
Mother, me of the, sister. It's like
one from Umbrella Academy.
Yeah, exactly like that. Exactly like that. And then Dusk meets with Day at their tomb. So we can see. So you get that it's like that's yet another version. You get it, right?
Right.
That older one that's like, that's what he looked like when he died. That's like darkness. Right. And I think it's here where I think he's trying to I know at some point they're trying to get Day, the middle empire, the one on the middle throne, to like show some sort of grace or mercy towards the reps, right? That did this.
Right.
Remember? And yeah. Hold on, we already talked about this. I don't make sure. Right. So Dusk is like, yeah, maybe you should try Grace. This motherfucker's like, fuck Grace. He takes him out. Well, first of all, they're at like one of the levels, right? One of the destroyed or, affected by the collapse. And he has the two reps on their knees and they have he has their entourages strung up on new, like they have nooses around their neck and they're standing like on the edge of the roof, right?
Yep.
And he shows them their planets and that he has ships orbiting or outside, like ready to fire upon their home planets. And he makes them watch as he has their entourages executed and their planets bombed. And he's like, go back and tell your people you couldn't save them. And then later, when the little one, Dawn, he's looking up at the bodies with them, and he's like, how often do we do this? Like, you know, he could have chose Grace. He goes, how often do we choose this? She goes, you always do this, little nigga, always. Y'all always murdering people. She said, you always choose genocide. That's just who you are. And then, yeah, Gaal walks. Now, what did Gaal... She figured something out in the pool. Remember, like, she was swimming and she figured something out and she was going to tell Harry when she walked in on Ra's killing Harry.
Right.
Yeah. And he took something off of Harry's ear after he killed him. Did you see that?
I missed that.
Yeah. I just think it was planned. And then he puts her in a escape pod. But liquid. And so, like, has she been floating out there for 35 goddamn years?
Yes. And that's where I guess we can't say anything. But that's where, like, watching all of episode 3, and they're, like, 35 years later type of thing. And like, okay, where, like, I'm looking for the characters from, like, okay, what's the point of showing us 35 years ago? Where are those characters at? So that's what I was waiting for. The whole,
well, I mean, some of them are still there, like Salvor's mother and father. You get that. I think everybody in that room when they were training, when it was like a virtual with the bishop's claw.
They're all just older versions of
them. I think that's all of those people. So that guy Lewis, he had like that funky blonde hair. He's now the asshole in charge. There's her father and all that. Right. Okay, so episode 3, The Mathematician's Ghost. This is 19 years after the Star Bridge collapsed. Okay, and Brother Dusk is preparing for his ascension. So we go back 400 years to Cleon the First, and the Star Bridge is not complete. He's about to die, and he's lamenting the fact that he won't get to see the Star Bridge completed. And it's basically, you know, he's considering like his life's work and his legacy. And it's interesting because this comes up later where it's like, is his legacy this or is his legacy us? Meaning his clones, you know, going forward. Right. Now, did you notice, like, when Dem is there and she's talking to him and they seem to have, you know, just as close a relationship, you know, obviously it's different than, like, how she treats, like, the 10-year-old or whatever, but all of the relationships feel close to me, if that makes sense.
Yes.
Although I feel like I've never seen her, and maybe it's just the personality, whenever it's Lee Pace version, I don't feel like they have a lot of soft moments. Right? Like, I feel like she's had soft...
Right. And I think a lot of it is because he's the day is always the main one. Like, he's the one in charge. Yeah. And I think it has to do a lot with
where he is at that he seems to always be that way.
Right.
Yeah. Okay. So now, it's 19. So, what I was going to say was in this flashback, notice how she puts her hand on the small of his back. And it's like a very subtle thing, but it's like a controlling thing. Like, you know, like when you're like in ballroom dancing, right? Isn't that where it is? Like when the man leads, he puts his hand like on the small of the woman's back, and it's how he can like glide her across the, you know, navigate the stage that way. Right. That's what it just feels like to me. And she does that a fucking lot. But more on that in a second. So it's 19 years later, and now you just got to kind of get your brain in a different mindset when picturing these characters, right? So Lee Pace is now Dusk.
Yes.
Right? He's the guy who was getting a little old 19 years ago, right? That's what he looks like now. So he's like, what's his name? Terrence Mann, I think his name is. And then Dusk is now older, and he looks like what the guy in the water looks like in the, you know, the original one, right?
Yes.
And he's about to, you know, he has like a date. This is his last day, and he's about to ascend. And then,
even Dawn is like a younger day.
What?
Because at this point, Dawn is like.
Oh yeah, he looks
two
like
old versions, and then one like
Lee Pace.
Yes, and there's no younger one at
no,
this point.
Not yet.
Being born.
Exactly. He's born before they kill the other one. Okay.
Right.
So that's what they look like now, and this is what they're going through, right? Yes. I'm trying to place this all in my head. Okay. So now remember, he was already a little like more, he was already more sensible than Day was in the past, right? He was the one that was like, you should do some grace. You should, you know, he seemed to have more sense than Day. And he still seems to be a bit nicer when he goes for his like final fitting, and you have like the old tailor and his hands are shaking and all that stuff. And he didn't want to let the young girl like help with his clothes or whatever. I like that he was like, come on, Ilan, let's let the young lady take the stage. You know, like, you can barely do this job anymore. Just move. Which is funny considering what happens later. Yeah, but he just seems nicer, right?
Well, that's like even with the art and stuff like that.
Yeah.
John, and then the other one takes his spot, and this is like a racist shit.
Mm-hmm. So Dusk is also at this point, he's kind of looking back on his life and questioning their legacy, in particular what they did to Anacreon and Thespin. And I like this scene because like at the beginning of it, he says something like, you know, I'm just thinking about everything I've said, and do I have anything left to say? Like, that's just really interesting because a lot of, you know, most people don't know when they're going to die. And so I just thought it's interesting if you do know, like if you know, this is the time that you're going to get, to just spend that last day reflecting like what this is it. Like, you know, like if there's anything left that I have to say that I think needs to be said, needs to be said in terms of, you know, how it will affect people in the world going forward, this is my time to say it. And I don't know, I really like the scene. And clearly what they did 19 years ago with Anacreon and Thespin like weighs on him, right? I like when he goes to visit like the hall with the busts of his former selves. So the first Cleon was known as the Dreamer, the second one was the Scholar, the third one was the Alchemist, and then he goes, and then me. Like, what will my, you know, again, the legacy be? The what?
The artist.
Aww. Yeah, that's actually good. You made me feel bad. When they're having the final dinner, did you notice how they were seated? Like, he's still in the... Like, back in the past, you remember when he was carving that peacock and they were trying to teach the young Dawn about... Yeah. So now, it's weird because, like, he's still sitting at the head of the table, but now the other two have switched spots. You get what I mean? Like,
yes, I got it.
Lee Pace is still sitting... The actor, Lee Pace, is still sitting on the right, if you're looking at the screen, but he's not the same person. He's now the little boy. The little boy is now him, and now he's sitting on the other side.
Right.
Yeah, it was interesting. And it does remind me very much like a clock, you know, like how they sit at these precise points around this table. They take him out to space, and I didn't get this. Like, they were looking at, like, past images of, like, the first Cleon. And then something exploded and they were all sad. And I was like, what the fuck was that? Like, did you get that? I didn't get what see, these are the kind of questions I expect y'all to answer in the feedback. And then in the middle of the night, he hears, what's her name? Dem singing to the baby. That's not creepy.
That's
Also,
it, like
that baby is the feds, right? That baby's the feds. The new Cleon is the feds. She did something.
but that's just how I would just imagine her with all of them, though. That's
Nope.
why she's got the relationship.
Nope. I feel like she did something. That Cleon is the feds. The new Dawn, feds. So
She's turning him into Winter Soldier.
you fucking around. All right. You joking. I'm telling you that boy is the feds. So I like that when she's like, you're not supposed to be in here. He was like, well, I can't be the first one who wanted to see myself, being born. And she goes, yeah, but that's why we made the rule. And I like that he notes that Selden may have been right. Like, this is unnatural. You're not just supposed to keep growing yourself over and over again. And then she finds him like sleeping because he went back to the mural and he fell asleep there. And then she puts him to bed and he's like, she goes, like he basically thinks that she loved the first one more than she loved them. And she goes, are we just not enough? And then she goes, you're more than enough. It's just that you always leave me. But you know what? She said something interesting in the first episode or maybe it was the second, whatever, when he was questioning, basically the little one was basically kind of, hinting at like, why don't you hate us? Like, why, and she said something like, she pretends to be human. And she said, it's better if you just stick to one reality. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. She is...
Right, but she's been living forever.
Right? And I'm like, but it feels like every now and again, like she lets that shit slip. You know what I mean? Like she's not human and she don't fuck with them kids. I just feel like she did something. So then, now you notice that it wasn't until they, like when he comes for his ascension, they call each other by new names.
Yes.
Yeah, so dawn becomes day, right?
It becomes dusk.
And day becomes dusk, and dusk becomes darkness.
Yeah.
And then he really becomes dust.
Mm-hmm.
Dust. Now, the baby. The baby is crying. And he turns back and he goes, something is wrong. And she puts her hand on his lower back. He turns to her and he says, Demerzel. And she says, I don't forget anyone or anything. The Empire is always on my mind. That felt, she did something. And I think he kind of figured out what she did. And that's why he said her name like that.
Mm.
And I don't know, like, did the baby not cry before? Like, there's something different about him. And you see that, right? You don't think that, like, when we see him later, that he's not different?
I mean, I definitely thought he was different. And, like, when we see him later, like,
right now, which I guess we can talk about 17 years later.
Right. He is different.
He has the mural erased, right?
Right.
Okay. Now, while all of that was going on, Terminus was being colonized. The vault was left alone after they realized, okay, they don't want to be fucked with. We'll just leave it alone. And then the slow ship, the ship that they all travel there on, is scuttled for parts. And they show like that time lapse of them building their community, right? Salva figures out that the null field around the vault is expanding. This may be a crisis. She's like, this may be the crisis. Like, I guess Harry's thing was, they're going to exile us. We're going to go to Terminus. We'll build a colony and we're going to face one major crisis that we will win. Right?
I did like the little flags that they had. That was like all these different countries and stuff. And it just reminded me of like what people do here, like, climbing to the top of a mountain and putting a flag up there.
Yeah.
And it's like, that's all just these flags. This is the farthest they ever got.
A man named Hugo comes back and he and Salva are fucking.
So this I thought was really interesting. because maybe I'm wrong, and maybe I heard it wrong, but didn't he say something like time had passed so many years and he didn't age or something?
He's like nearly
that?
70.
Right.
Yeah, because he's from Thespis.
Okay.
Thespis.
Yes, that's right. That's right.
He's from the other planet that got blown up. And the people that show up on Terminus in this episode are from Anacreon. The 2 planets that got fucked up 17 years ago. Right. So when that shit happened, he was like jumping and stuff, and he spent a lot of that time, I think he said, like in that cryo sleep. So he's nearly 70, but he doesn't look it.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
So Salvor has these like in the middle of the night, she has like this, she hears something, she gets up, she's chasing this little boy, and she chases him through the slow ship. Now, this is the ship that they were all living in, traveling here. Okay. They broke it down and used parts of it to, build their colony. So there's still like the shell of their ship there. And she follows him in there, and she sees she never finds him, but she sees that bishop's claw thing, that monster thing. And as it jumps through a hole in the roof, and she uses her gun to like follow it, she's looking through the scope, she sees an Anacreon ship in the sky. And that's how so it's like this, she was meant to follow that boy so she could see those ships, right? In the sky. That's what it feels like. No?
Yeah, a lot of it, it's somebody's, because there was a couple times, because
somebody's trying to tell her something.
Boy, yeah, she saw the boy like 2 or 3 times. Mm-hmm. I mean, going after her. But at this point of the show, just in my head, I'm like, who is, like, what's important with her? Who is she? And I just kept thinking in my head until we find out later. But I kept thinking that she was somehow related to Gaal.
Yeah. So with the field increasing, Salvor suggests that maybe the Vault was trying to warn them that this was going to happen. They try to contact the Empire, but it fails because their communication buoy's down. Their armory is trash. They don't have a lot of weapons. Apparently, Salvor's been telling these motherfuckers the sky's falling. They ain't want to listen. So, yeah. And I know, like a kind of desperate act, her mother tries to see if she can read Harry's work. And it looks like she could at first. Like, her eyes were moving around and stuff, but then it was like, She was like,
numbers.
She was like,
Too many numbers.
Yeah. She's like, nobody told me there would be a test. Nobody told me there'd be math on this. And then she follows him again, this little boy. She has this vision. She's following him. And this time she finds a wounded bishop's claw. Like somebody shot it with an arrow. And that's when she finds all of these people with bows and arrows. And that is the end of the episode. So did I help, while I pull up the feedback, did I help make more sense? Like.
Sort of, yeah.
Oh, really? Just sort of? I just fucking gave you a masterclass in Foundation. And you're like, oh, I guess. All right, let's see what kind of feedback. I don't know. Oh, wow. I was like, I don't know if we're going to get feedback for this. Hold on. So, wait, I got to save this one. Okay, so R&B Lover. Hey, Kimberly. Hi, Nina and Donnie. First things first. This show is simply beautiful to look at. Isn't it? It is so... I think it's gorgeous. The costuming,
Oh, definitely. I mean, it has a feeling of it's got this huge... I mean, it takes place in space or a different planet.
Right, like the scope is huge. Yeah.
There's a lot of different costumes. It's got a lot of different sets. It just makes it feel huge.
Mm-hmm. Apple has clearly invested the money needed to make this futuristic world look believable. Why on a show where there are tons of English actors was Alfred Enoch given the role of an American character? I don't know. Why they keep doing that to him? Just let that boy be British. Because his American accent is not good. It's just not. I understood it on How to Get Away with Murder, but in this, he totally could have been British. I like the setup, even if the episode was a little long. I like the lead actress, and I'm interested in seeing where things go. Apple has already renewed the show for a second season. They sure have. So hopefully that means we won't be left with unresolved cliffhanger anxiety. Yeah, I'm still bitter at Fox. Its treatment of good shows within this genre. Don't even get me started. Like they did with what was the last show that we watched on Fox that we really liked? And they just Passage? Yeah, The Passage. They just pulled that shit. They pulled that shit out from under us and it was terrible. Okay, for episode 2, she says, now, anytime I see one of the actors from The Wire, my interest in the project, they are and immediately picks up. Yeah. The guy who plays Abbas is from, Clark Peters, that's his name. I like his voice. It's a very distinct voice. Salvor's father, the black guy.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I was thrilled to see Clark Peters in this episode, and I'm still trying to grasp the intricacies of the show and its jumping back and forth between timelines, but I'm enjoying the journey thus far. The brother clones are something else. Too much power in anyone's hands is never a good thing. Oh, wait, fuck. I was going to say some stuff, but it's for episode 4. Well, that was quite the ending. Did Raish kill his father and set Gaal up to be the fall guy intentionally or by happenstance? Are things not quite what they appear? Yeah, I don't think so. I don't think that's what he did. And I don't even know if Harry's dead. Like, I feel like Jarrett Harris is not an actor that you just have in one episode, though. Like, one and a half.
If they keep doing flashbacks and stuff like that.
Yeah, that's true, too. For episode 3, she says, is Demerzel eternal as we see her with the original version of Cleon? Mm-hmm. At least I think he is the original in this episode, which starts off 400 years in the past. Yep. Or is she a clone too? No, it's the same one. And I like when she said, like, he was like, you don't know, there are some things you'll just never know because of who you are or what you are. And she was like, but I may one day, know death. And he goes, yeah, but I doubt you'll think it came too soon. And I was like, oh, like in her lifetime, right? Like humans, we always think it comes too soon. Right. It's not enough time, but you know, for her, you know, he was like, I doubt when that happens, you'll be like, already? You'll probably be ready to go. We end the episode with the introduction of some potential foes or maybe people in search of their own safe haven in the face of impending doom. With all the time jumps, it's hard to identify a lead on this show. I like Gaal, Salvor, and Hugo, and I'm still trying to get everyone's names. I love the statement, to be alive is to see ghosts. It is so accurate. This show is amazing to look at. It really is. I'm going to jump to the Patreon really quick. I read that from email, but I'm going to jump on Patreon really quickly just to make sure I didn't miss anything else. Donnie, I swear to God, you better not leave me watching this show by myself.
I'm watching it.
You better. I'm so upset. I'm not going to have time to watch Ted Lasso today. Oh, no, that's not what I meant to do. Because I still got homework to do and I still have another podcast and I got to watch stuff. Oh, my, Donnie, oh my God. I looked at the clock. I thought it said 9:30.
Jesus.
I almost died. Like, I legit, my heart, like, jumped. Okay. It's only 5:30, folks. We still got some time. But no, seriously, Donnie, don't leave me watching this show by myself.
I'm not.
Okay. Tell folks what we got coming up while I try to find this feedback.
Ted Lasso season 2 review. What else? Only Murders in Building. Mm-hmm. What else we doing premium?
Attack on Titan. Oh my God, my dog is so embarrassing. Oh, Signal.
Is Hawkeye gonna be?
Yes.
That starts like really soon, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm. We're doing
this month.
I don't remember. No, next month.
Okay.
Yeah. Peyton says, so happy you guys are podcasting this show. This show got me to sign up for Apple TV. I love a big sprawling sci-fi epic. Lee Pace and all the actors are killing it. Yeah, there's some stuff that I was like, oh, I didn't say this. And it just hit me that it's episode 4. So I'm excited to go talk about that, which we're going to do right now. So thank you guys for listening. Donnie just named some stuff that we got coming up, but we have a lot more. We're also covering Titan Season 3. Kaylee and I just finished Attack on Titan, and we're starting a new anime called Erase, and we're doing that one fairly quickly, just 2 podcast coverage, because we're jumping right into Demon Slayer, which I've heard nothing but good things about, so I'm super excited about that. Yeah, a lot of good stuff. So if you're listening to this for free as a kind of free taste of what to expect over on Patreon, hopefully you'll go sign up, patreon.com/podcastfandom. Everybody else, our patrons, thanks for listening, thanks for subscribing, and we'll see you next time.